Welcome back to theGrio. He was a fixture in early Atlanta politics. Marvin Arrington Sr. was a visionary, a city council member, and a Superior Court judge. Arrington was in Atlanta politics for more than 25 years, and now a new documentary called Bowlegs chronicles his life, career, and how his efforts helped put the city of Atlanta on the map.
Anytime you give a mayor credit for Atlanta's place in America and the world, you have to think about the person that organized the legislative side of that effort.
He ruled this chamber like mighty Zeus in Olympus. And it was a chamber that we aspire to the highest for the least of these. And it is his example that made this an august, mystical body of public service.
Joining me now is Adelin Gasana. He is the writer and director of the Bowlegs documentary. My brother, welcome to theGrio.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Talk to me about this film. Why was it important for you to make a project like this?
Well, these are the kind of stories that make for documentaries, right? It's the unfamiliar story. It's the story off the beaten path. And for us Atlanteans, he's well known in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so we wanted to take his story and really galvanize it. Marvin Arrington Sr. Was born in Grady Homes housing projects, was a Grady baby. And he was born in a segregated town of the Deep South. And he helped transform this city into the international cosmopolitan city that we have today. And so it was incumbent upon us to give him his flowers while he's still with us as the living legend himself. And it was a beautiful project, and it's been well received.
It's exciting to hear about. There are so many people who get heralded in Atlanta's history. The King family, for example, Andrew Young, for example, Hank Aaron, for example. In the modern era, we're going to hear stories of people who spent most of their life in Atlanta, the Ushers of the world, artists, like Jermaine Dupri. But then there are these people who, if you know Atlanta well, as you said, if you're a native Atlantan, if you're a Grady baby especially, because that means something if you're from Atlanta, if you're one of them, there's some folk in the grassroots, there's some folk in the hood, there's some folk in the Atlanta metro area more broadly who made the city what it is. How did you decide to dig in that area as opposed to telling one of these stories about one of the more celebrated Atlanta heroes, which might have got you more money, more spotlight, more funding? You know what I mean? Like, what made you choose this one?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I was the archival researcher for the Maynard documentary, and I was responsible for all third-party content. Worked with the producers and editors toward the picture lock of that film. And a few months later, Marvin Arrington Jr., the son of Marvin Arrington Sr., who's currently a Fulton County commissioner, approached me about doing a documentary on his dad. Now, I've been doing documentaries for about over a decade and a half now. And usually when people come to me with projects and ideas, I kind of push back in the sense of saying, how can we tell this visually? Is there enough out there? How can we really go, from A to Z with a project like this? And we talked a little bit more about it, and I decided, let me come in as an archival researcher for the first 2-3 weeks. Let me see what all I can find, and let me dig it up. And as I'm digging, I'm going to Atlanta History Center, Woodruff Library, AUC Center, Clark Atlanta, all over Atlanta, and I was blown away by the archival material on this one figure. And yet, as you brought up, Maynard Jackson, Andrew Young, Marvin Arrington Sr. was a city council president, which is really the number 2 position in city government. And he was with those administrations, the entire Maynard Jackson's 8-year term and then Andrew Young's 8-year term. And so it tells you so much about these behind the scenes.
Why is he not more well known? Like Maynard Jackson has books and now documentaries about him. Yes. Andy Young is a legend and everybody knows it. He's at the Olympics. Why does this story not get told as much?
Well, we addressed that in the documentary. When an individual like this doesn't have the mayor title in front of him, and he's city council president, he's kind of the local figure, the local legend. It doesn't get the shine. and a lot of the legislation he passed, you brought it up, the Atlanta airport, helping save the Atlanta Zoo, bringing the Olympics to Atlanta. He was principal in that, but Andrew Young and Mayor Jackson were the mayors, so they get all the credit, right? But anybody who really understands the seams, understands how city government works, knows that he was right there in the thick of it, and that's kind of what how a lot of these stories prop up here in Atlanta. I'm glad you brought up Atlanta as being influential. The moniker today is that Atlanta influences everything, right?
For sure.
And part of that is
Atlanta's the new black. Atlanta's always been a kind of black capital. You got Detroit, you got Harlem, of course. Atlanta's always had an important role in the American South in that way. And nowadays, I mean, you can't turn on TV, you can't listen to the radio without hearing Atlanta, either directly or through its influence. Let me ask you a question though. Yes. How did he get the name Bowlegs? I gotta know.
That was his lifelong nickname. He had it since his high school football days. He was a high school football legend from Turner High School, and he got his scholarship at Clark College, which is now Clark Atlanta. And yeah, he was bow-legged. Had it throughout his entire political career, all the way through his mayor run. And he was known as Bowlegs. So that's the term of endearment. They don't even call him Marvin or Mr. Arrington or Judge Arrington. They call him Hey Bowlegs.
Hey, Bo. That's how you know it's your nickname. When they make a nickname for the nickname, when you go from Bowlegs to just Bo, you know what I mean? That's when you really did it. But I got to run in a second, man. But let me ask you, what's the reaction been like from the Arrington family? Sometimes you make docs and families don't love it. How have they reacted to your film, which is shown, of course, at multiple film festivals so far?
Yes. Yeah, we were at multiple film festivals. We even had a 6-month run on Delta Airlines from August to January. And they loved it. They appreciated every aspect of how we put it together as I scripted it out, and all the important figures who came and spoke on his impact and his achievements. But I think he himself was blown away. I mean, to take a 50-year story. I mean, this guy who integrated Emory University Law School, is the youngest city council man in Atlanta's history, then becomes the longest serving city council president.
Man, this man is he really is like the legend of Atlanta, the OG of Atlanta. And I, having lived in Atlanta a bit, know the story of him, but I don't know all of it. And I can't wait to watch this documentary so that I can learn just how integral he was to Atlanta life and culture. Anyway, Adelin, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, check out the documentary. It is now available. It's called Bowlegs, and it's on Apple TV, Amazon Prime Video, and YouTube.